Welcome everybody to Lowkey Genius Podcast. I'm your host Juvel De Lima, and today in the show I have the founder and CEO of the Worthy Retail Global and the host of Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy. I already said his name. Welcome to the show, Steve.
How you doing, man? How you doing? Super stoked to be here.
Yeah, and I was really excited to have you on because this um conversation should happen a month ago, but
Yeah.
because of the some things that need to priority. So the good thing is we are right now recording, and let's talk about your journey. So Steve, please tell us a little bit of background. How did you start with your career?
Oh, yeah. Well, interestingly enough, I went to undergrad for accounting, and I got my undergrad in accounting, and then I started working with Arthur Anderson, which I hated. I couldn't do it. Arthur Anderson back then was like one of the big accounting firms,
Yeah.
and I couldn't stand it. It didn't fit my personality. I was in a cubicle looking at spreadsheets all day long, and I just couldn't do it. And so I ended up taking a little trip to visit family down in North Carolina. And I was actually in this coffee shop. It was called Caribou Coffee. And so I was just really there trying to sort out like my next move. I said, I don't know what I want to do next. And I started talking to the manager. She introduced me to her manager. I extended my stay in order for me to end up playing golf with her manager and then his boss, and it turned into like an 18-hole job interview. And right
Wow.
after that, he offered me an opportunity within retail, and I said, I don't know anything about retail. He said, don't worry about it. We'll teach you what you need to know. You already have some of the skills, and that was the start of my
What year
retail.
exactly is that happened?
Oh gosh, this was 90. This is how old I am. This was like 96. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
All right.
It
And what's happened next after that interview? You got into retail.
Yeah, yeah, I got into retail hard, and I loved it. It fit my personality, um, all the different attributes of quick decision making, connecting with people very quickly, getting the buy-in of individuals, but then also moving, a massive team towards a goal. And that was a challenge for me. A challenge that I love to do was to how do you get people on board very quickly, because within the retail space, you don't have a lot of time to think. You don't have a
Yes.
lot of time to, sit down and whiteboard all these different ideas. You have to get the buy-in of individuals quickly. And so the atmosphere, the environment of retail, just fit my perspective, and I just was able to climb the ladder with different roles.
Yeah, that was great. And how old are you that time? Since you said you just got into retail,
Yeah,
are
I
you
think I was.
in are you in a job before that happened, or you are just sitting there? You
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
got the opportunity.
Yeah, well, here's the interesting thing was that when I was talking to the gentleman, the regional director for Caribou Coffee, where we were, doing we were playing golf for 18 holes, and then afterwards, and I told him, I said I didn't really have the experience in retail. What he did was he recanted all of my leadership qualities that I had gained while I was in the service. And I was in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, all these different things. And so this is one of the things that I tell people now based on that situation, was that I didn't realize at that point in time how much I had accomplished as a young man. It was like
Yeah.
24, 20, from 18 all the way to 22, and then finished college, and then like 25, 26 at that point in time in my life. I didn't realize how much I had accomplished and how much my life skills and all these different things applied to this current role. And I say that to say is because I deal with a lot of people from my coaching and training standpoint now, is that they take a lot of what they do for granted, and they don't think what they do is important. And
Yeah.
so I have to pull out of them some of those nuances and some of the skills and abilities that they have, and they're like, oh wow, I didn't realize I actually do all of this. So that was a really good learning for me as a young man. To now, I've carried that throughout my career, and I carry that now whenever I'm talking to podcasts or I'm actually coaching and developing people.
Yeah. And by the way, did you come from a lot of money?
Oh, me? No, 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 no. My parents, my dad, he worked for a steel company, and then my mom was a nurse, and I'm the youngest of seven, right? And
Wow.
so, yeah, yeah, my parents were originally from this little town in South Carolina called Chester, South
Yeah.
Carolina. I mean, I don't think it had one stoplight in that entire town, and they moved up to New York when in the 50s because that's where a lot of the jobs and things were taking place, up in up north. And then all of us were born in New York and stuff like that. So yeah, no, it's just they were hardworking. I remember my mom, uh, she was a registered nurse, but I remember that she had, there were different levels before you became a registered nurse. I think it
Yes.
was he was a candy striper, LPN, I think, and then a registered nurse, if I'm not mistaken. But I remember as a kid vividly, late nights watching my mom, at the kitchen table look at, EKG strips, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays it's all done, digitally. But back then they were like strips of EKGs, and she would like just be working and working them out and diagnosing different things, and so that as a young man, even to this day, it stuck with me just to see how hard she would work and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing. So from your perspective and from your experience growing up, what's one of the best advice that you ever received throughout your career?
Oh wow. Um, well, I think one of them is to never take yourself too seriously. I think that has always been something I've always lived by. Is that I never take myself too seriously because then that will hinder my growth. That will hinder my ability to learn from other people. If I am closed off and think that I know it all, I will not be able to be approachable to individuals. I will not be able to learn more from them where in essence I can learn more about myself and then give that back out to someone else. So I think that's one of them. And then I think the other one, I learned this during my career, was around talent. Like how do you develop and grow great talent? Because as a leader, we tend to see the leaders who are out there right and they're on stages and they're doing all these other things, but what we don't see is the talent that they've developed to help
Yes.
them elevate themselves to that role. And that part has always been important for me, is to how do I make sure that I'm developing talent, great talent, and those around me. And I try to do that within the podcast, right? I
Yeah.
talk a lot about talent development. I talk a lot about how do you make those around you better, all those different things. So those are probably the two pieces of advice that I've sort of lived by.
Yeah, that was great. And thank you so much for sharing that. Something that I live also. So what are there people who doubted you in your career, like in retail or starting a business?
Mm.
Are there people doubted you?
Yeah, I don't know necessarily say they doubted me. Um, I think part of when you go off on your own. So when I left retail to do Worthy Retail Global,
Yeah.
there were some naysayers. There were some people who didn't see the vision. But I realized was that my purpose is bigger than someone else's non-belief, right?
Yeah.
What I feel like I'm called to do is way more important. The lives that I need to touch, the people that I need to connect with, um, the people that are quote unquote like waiting for a message that I have that could actually change the trajectory of their life. Like for me,
Yes.
that's way more important. I remember even with the podcast, I remember this vividly. I got an email because sometimes when you're doing podcasts, yeah, you may get good download numbers, but like you don't know if you're really impacting somebody. And I remember
Yeah.
this was probably about 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and I got an email, um, a message on LinkedIn, and they said, "Steve, I just want to let you know, like I love what you're doing with your podcast, and And when I hire this person was in retail, they said when I promote somebody, I actually have them listen to, like, there was three specific episodes that he said that he has them listen to for retail leadership with Steve Worthy. But like when they get promoted, we're going to do all this onboarding, but then you're going to listen to these three episodes by Steve Worthy. And I was just like blown away. It's like, whoa, I didn't create it for that, but to get that message, it let me know, and several other messages, down the line, just let me know that I'm doing the right thing, that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, and of course, so you are happy with what you're doing, and something like you are aligned with what you're doing, like the value. And by the way, do you believe in God?
Oh, 100%. Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gave my life to the Lord in 1996 when I moved down from New York to Charlotte. And October 13th, I remember vividly. It was a Sunday, and we had Pastor Phillips. God bless him. He passed away probably about 5 years ago, but he had a guest speaker in that Sunday, and in the he was from the Moody Bible Institute. I cannot remember his name, but this is interestingly what happened was because typically when I went to church, back then I was sitting in the back. I would like kind of just stroll in and sit in the back. This particular Sunday, I was up front. I was up front, and he just talked about the simple path of someone who has already gone down this path for you, or you can go down this path yourself. And it was just a very simple message, and that just it got me out on my feet, and been living for God ever since, man.
Yeah, amen to that. And that's how we grow. That's how we overcome challenges because of the faith that give us hope. With all
Hmm.
of the highs, with the success with your career, what was the lowest point in your life that changed something in you, that you believe, and that still right now that instill in you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a really good, you know, um, you know, my, my parents, both of them, passed away, and I, it was, it was very hard when they passed away. My dad. And here's the interesting part of this: like the death can be interesting, but my dad passed away May 13th. I think it was 2000, maybe 2015 or 14 or something like that. Um, my mom passed away the same day, 2 years later, May 13th. They both passed away on the same day, and it's that uh, you know that those moments, really it didn't test my faith. It just really made me realize how much I miss them. My dad was a very quiet, man. Didn't say a lot. Big presence. His voice was deeper than mine. So that's where I get
Mm.
my voice from. It's from my dad. My mom was her sense of humor was ridiculous. Like I would have friends that just wanted to come over our house just to hear, my mom
Mhm.
crack jokes. And but my mom had the knack of calling me when I needed it, right? I would be probably going through something, or I'm about to go through something. My mom would just call me and just be like, what's going everybody calls me Stevie. She's like, what's going on, Stevie? And I was just like, no, nothing. She's like, no, there's something going on. And then I just talk to her, break down or whatever, talk to her. And what I've realized is I miss those moments more so than I thought that I ever would. It's just those simple moments that I try to do the same thing with my children, is to just to have those simple moments that impact your life.
Yes, I'm sorry to hear that. And for those who are watching this right now, what advice can you give to those 20 years olds who's watching right now?
Yeah, I think I think when I think about where things are going, um, the the job market, and career market are completely different, right, nowadays than it was when I was growing up, right? It was even the generations prior to me, right? There was this mindset of staying with one company, all these different things. And I think part of, nowadays what we have to allow people to do is to have the freedom to, understand that they can create their own paths and that they have value within themselves in order which direction that they want to go. And I would say try your best to lean into, first of all, truly understand who you are, as best as you possibly can. The world will try to tell you that you're something different than what you are, and that's where that relationship with God comes into play, where He can tamp that down and He can raise up a standard against all of that stuff, and you can really figure out and understand who you are. And then once you're able to do that, you have to lean into it. You have to lean into it, regardless of what people may say, regardless of what people to the left or to the right are doing. You have to lean into your God-given talents, whatever those will be. I don't know what those could be for you, but if I had to give myself that advice, as a young person, that's the advice that I would have given myself, was to lean into my strengths. I fought so hard, I think, against um, certain aspects of my personality that because I wanted to fit in and into
Yes.
this mode. And that's the advice that I would have given my younger self, is to like just lean into your sense of humor, your ability to develop talent, your ability to spot talent, your ability to encourage people and move them forward. All those different things that, as I've moved on to the latter parts of my career, I've become sort of known for. I wish I would have leaned into those things earlier.
Yes. And something that I am struggling also right now in my 20s, because I am in a community or in a family that believe that I should go to school, get a good
Mm,
grade,
hmm.
find a job, and then settle in the government, the
Yeah.
how they pay me. So it's something that I didn't follow them. I told my parents that it's something that I don't want to. I start joining network marketing. I drop out of college. I am studying civil engineering, but it's
Hmm.
something that it's not I really wanted to be, but it's for my parents. But I dropped out of college, and then I started joining network marketing, and then I start learning all things business,
Mm,
entrepreneurs. I get to know people who has different mindset from the people who was around me before, and then I start getting friends who's thinking differently.
mm.
So I become more happy with what I'm doing, and then I start doing freelancing. So I explore different things because I believe there's something in me that I should do
Yeah.
rather than going to corporate world, like going to job, waking up early, and then 9 to 5, something like that. I'm having a good time
Hmm.
in my laptop doing things, editing, and then talking to people, improving myself. What should I improve today? Something like that. So for you, Steve, um, what advice can you give me
Mm.
as someone who dropped out of college,
Yeah.
started podcasting, and then figuring things out
Yeah,
this way?
yeah, yeah, and that's it's a good place to be when you're sort of figuring things out, because you can still be open to change and adaptation in who you are, because you're not things aren't solidified, your mentality. And I think for me, that was like one of the best things that I did. It was the scariest thing that I did, was to leave accounting way back when, because it was a sure job, right? The money
Yes.
was sure, the industry was sure. There, and I had options. I could have gone to Deloitte and Touche. I could have gone to a couple other routes, but for me, it was scary because I didn't know what I was going to happen.
Yes,
Um,
it was scary.
I just came from, the military where everything was, it was structured. And I have a very unstructured mentality with a lot of things. I think right now you're in a space of discovery, and I don't think you're going against your parents just to go against your parents, right? It's not a rebellious act.
Yes.
It is more of a becoming, right? It is really, you're trying to become something that you've never done. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs about this who, and I have to encourage myself with this, is that you are in the midst of creating something that has never been created before, regardless of if it looks similar to this person to the left or to the right. It is different. It is uniquely you. And so as you're creating something that has never been in existence before, it is hard because you don't know what those next steps are. And
Yes.
you wish you can, succinctly define them, but you can't, because you are in uncharted territory, period. And part of that is to keep your circle small. I just did something on my newsletter, um, uh, Worthy Retail Leadership, on Substack, and it's called "Keep Your Circle Small," right? Because I spent a lot of time in my career, early in my career, networking with just a ton of people, trying to get to know a lot of people, things along that line, and I found myself, sort of, going to the left and going to the right based on all the people that were around me. But the older I got, I started to realize that I needed to keep my circle a lot smaller. And I have very specific people and friends that are in my circle. And so if there's one piece of advice, I would think about, like, how do you keep that smirkle of that's smirkle, that circle of influence small for you? Because I think the more you expand it, the more you sort of um, um, get away from the core of who you are and what you want to do, right? And if you've already been able to define that, then that's great. And then you need to find people who are going to be able to challenge you, and then keep that circle small, man. I got to tell you, that is the one other piece of advice that I wish I would have probably given myself when I was younger.
Thank you so much with that. I will take note of that. And Steve, are you good at sale?
At sales,
Yes.
you know what? I am, but I gotta be passionate about it. You know, if I don't believe in it, then I can't talk about it. And I think the sales have to be natural, right?
Yeah.
Even like, so even when we're I'm dealing with people from a coaching and training standpoint, and we're having a conversation, prior to them signing a deal, part of I don't even call it a strategy, because it's really just me. Part of it is really understanding, like, their problem, right? And honestly, with sales, that's the main goal too, right? Is to understand their problem, and then, if once you understand their problem, you can figure out whether what you have to offer will help them. And I think
Yes.
the issue a lot of times, what we find in sales, is that individuals will, sort of, uh, you know, create a problem that doesn't really exist for the client, just so that you could put your product or your service into that problem that they don't really have. And right, and then that's why sometimes the sales will fall flat, or that's where you don't get people to re-engage, right? So from a coaching standpoint, I feel like one of the best things, and one of the best metrics, if you will, or KPIs for me, is when I have a client that will re-up, they will ask for another package. There's like, I love what I'm receiving. Hey, I want to sign up for another six, right? That's, for
Yes.
me, is a sign that things are working. They're enjoying this journey. So I think part of it is just having a passion for what it is that you want to sell, and then make sure that you are clearly defining the problem for your client, and then that your service or product will meet that need.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve. I'm learning a lot from you today. So, if people want to know more about you, where they can find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is going to be the best place. LinkedIn, right? So Steve Worthy on LinkedIn. If you want to learn a little bit more about what we do, you can of course go to worthyretail.com as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve, and to all of people who's watching this right now. I hope you are having a wonderful time, and I hope you learn a lot as I am learning also with Steve. So thank you so much, and see you to the next episode. Bye, Steve. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thanks, Ben.